Assalamu alaikum class. This video tutorial is to go back over and discuss some of the things we covered in class, which was CPI and TVM. I have also listed several websites that will be very beneficial to you to understand the concepts. So I really suggest that you read the information and actually watch the video that I've listed, as well as this video, to help you complete your homework assignment. With that being said, let's review. CPI, Consumer Price Index. It measures change in price levels of consumers' goods and services purchased by a household. CPI in the U.S. is defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics as a measure of the average change over time in the price paid by an urban consumer for a market basket of consumer goods and services. CPI is an economic indicator. It is the mostly used measure of inflation. The CPI is an indicator of the effectiveness of government's policies. In addition, business executives, labor leaders, and private citizens use the index as a guide in making economic decisions. Now, if you refer back to your homework assignment, one of the items that I asked you to solve for was CPI, and I asked you to find a product of your choice. For this tutorial, I have chosen an automobile, a car. So with that being said, let's try to go ahead and solve CPI for a car. Now let's say in year 1, 2011, December 2011, I go to a car dealership and I see a vehicle and it's $30,000. Mind you, I have no factual information to base any of my figures. I'm just randomly making up numbers. But for your homework assignment, I do want you to come up with some factual numbers. If you decide to do a car, I want you to go and Google Blue Book Value, and I want you to seriously find a vehicle and figure out the CPI from factual information. But for this video tutorial, I'm basically making up numbers. There's nothing to base no factual data whatsoever to base any of my findings. So let's say in December 2011 I decide that I don't really want to purchase a car at that time. I want to come back at a later date. So in year 2, let's say December 2012, I go back to the same dealership and I looked at the same car. Now let's stop for a moment so I can explain something. Certain products over the course of time either increase or decrease in value. For a car actually decreases. It depreciates over a course of time. So for this scenario, I'm going to depreciate my automobile to $25,000. Now, how do I go ahead and start solving for CPI? The first thing I want to do is I want to take year 2 and minus year 1, which we have a difference of 5,000. Now, I want you also to note that negative number. Now, we also discussed in class the difference between inflation and deflation, which deflation is the reverse of inflation. Inflation means that my purchasing power has reduced. Deflation, my purchasing power has increased. With deflation, you're going to have a negative number. With inflation, you're going to have a positive number. So, out of the sake of simplifying this tutorial, I'm going to go in and change my negative 5,000 to a positive so it reflects inflation. But on your assignment, I do not want you to do that. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. The next step that I have to do to solve for CPI is I have to figure out what the rate of change is between year 2011 and 2012. So how I go about doing this is I take my 5,000 and I divide that by my base being year 1, the 30,000. And as you see, I have an inflation rate of 17%. Now, if you did this in Excel using the same number, you would have gotten a decimal point. Because I've already previously formatted the cell, it's showing up as a percentage, but I'm sure you know how to convert a decimal over to a percentage by multiplying it by 100. In Excel, you can quickly do it by selecting the decimal and going over to the percent icon and clicking on percentage, which will automatically convert it over to a percentage. Now, the next thing I want to discuss with you is TVM, Time Value of Money. In class, the example that was given in the textbook was a loan of $20. And it's a very simple concept to understand. Basically, TMV is stating is that the $20 that was loaned today, over the course of time, futuristically, will devalue, meaning the $20 is worth more now than in 10 years, because over the course of time, inflation would make the value of that dollar reduce. Okay? Now, another thing I want to touch bases with you, in time value of money, in order to make that future dollar amount equivalent to the present, let's say, for instance, in this scenario, I wanted to purchase this vehicle. Again, there's only a couple of ways in which you can purchase it. You can either have $30,000, and let's just say I'm going to go ahead and purchase it in 2011. I can either have the $30,000 cash in full to pay off the car, or either I can go to a lending institution and obtain a loan. Now, when you borrow money from a bank, what they do instead of them losing the value of that $30,000 over the course of the note, the term, which is the next item that we're going to cover, they tack on an interest rate. That rate is to the whole point of that rate is to make the future value of the note equal to the present, equal or either make it more, depending on the institution. 9 times out of 10 it's going to add on because they want a fee for doing the work of all the paperwork of putting together the note. So with that being said, in this scenario, we're going to go out and get a note, so we're going to borrow. Now, when we borrow, they're going to want to set up a term. The term for this particular note is 1 annual payment per year, and let's just say 5 years to keep it very simple. Also keep in mind that when you do purchase a vehicle, payments aren't annually. For automobiles, they are more likely normally to be monthly, meaning you have a monthly payment throughout the term of the note. On sometimes you have bi-monthly, meaning you make 2 payments per month. But on the norm, you make a monthly payment. Now, if I were to take this 5 years and convert it over to monthly payments, it's a simple task of multiplying the 5 times the 12, and that will tell you the number of payments that you're going to make over the course of the five years. But to keep this example very simple, I just want to make 5 payments, 5 annual payments over the course of a note. Now, the next question that I wanted you to solve for is the payment. In order for you to solve for the payment, you need your term and your interest rate. Remember when I discussed about the interest rate, it was something that the bank adds on to the note. Also, what I want to tell you about the interest rate is an interest rate is something that each institution they come up with on an individual basis due to the risk of return on their money, due to inflation, due to an individual's pay histories. There's several factors that come into play for a lending institution to come up with the interest rate. Say, for instance, if you and I went to the bank, the same bank with the same vehicle, depending on our history and our information that they have gained from both of us, our portfolios, your interest rate might be less than mine's, or vice versa, due to the information that they have. So there's no solid, concrete way of determining for me to say all interest rates are set at a set rate, because they vary. For the purpose of this lecture, I'm going to state that my interest rate is going to be my CPI, the 17%. Okay, so let's move forward. Again, like I stated, I want you to solve your payment. In order to solve your payment, you need your term, which we stated was 5 years, your interest rate, which we stated was our CPI of 17%, and our present value. We stated that we were going to purchase this vehicle in 2011, meaning the present value is $30,000. You need those 3 items to find the PMT using Excel, which I had stated in the lesson that I want you to use Excel to solve all your problems. So let's solve for the PMT. Watch what I do. Put your equal sign, and then I want you to go up to where it says Auto Sum. Click on the drop down menu. Scroll down until you see More Functions. Click on it. Your Formula Builder window should pop up. Now in this window you can go into the search and you can type PMT, which stands for payment, or you can go to the scroll bar, hold down your mouse and scroll down until you see PMT and double click. When you do that, you should have an addition to that window called the arguments right here. Within that argument window, there is a section for rate, and I want you to click your cursor inside that box there. And for the rate, we said that our interest rate was going to be 17%. So go back up to your 17% and click on it. Go back into the argument, and where it says NPER, click in there. That means the number of payments. So I want you to go over to our term, which we stated was 5 years. That's 5 payments. Go back into the arguments, and where you see PV, which stands for present value, we stated that our present value was the $30,000. So click on it. Now, before you close out, one of the things that you have to do in order for this formula to work is, if you look all the way to the very bottom in your argument, you'll see where it says type. In that window, you must put a 0. If you do not put a 0, the formula will not work. It will not compute your payment at all. And then the next thing that I want you to do, I want you to go into the formula, and in front of your PV, your present value, which for me is cell C2, right here, column C, row 2, I want you to put a minus sign in front of the alpha. So it should look exactly like this, or similar, because you're going to set yours a little bit different and your cell references are going to be different, but this is what I want it to look like. Now hit enter. Okay, and so now you see that you have an annual payment of $9,305. The next question that I asked you to solve for is for your interest expense. I want the interest expense for the first fiscal year, meaning 2011, and how you do this is you put in your equal sign. I want the present value in 2011, which was the $30,000, and I want to multiply that by the interest rate of 17%. And you have $5,000. The next question I ask you is, I want you to find the change in the note, or the principal. How you go about doing this is you put your equal sign, Your payment minus your interest expense will give you your principal or your change in your note payable. Then my next question was the new balance on your note payable. I want to know what your balance is. So you take your present value, which was in 2011, subtract that from your change in the note payable, which is the $4,305, which gives you your new note balance. Your new note balance is actually the difference of your payment, your first annual payment from the present value. It reduces it by that change. Now the next thing I asked you to do was to set up an amortization table. And the reason behind that is because I want you to see the actual time value of money over a course of a note, the time frame over the term of the note. And as you see here, I've set up a spreadsheet or a table. I have my columns for the number of years, payments, interest expense, and the change on the note or principal, and the note payable. Now over here in your years, I want you to go on ahead, like we stated, we have 5 years, so I want you to put in your 5 years. The next thing I want you to do is solve for your payment, and we've already done this for the first fiscal year for 2011. And mind you, your payment throughout the course of the note never changes. It remains the same. So that $9,305 will be the same throughout the note. So I can go on ahead and put my payment for all 5 years because it's never going to change. It will be the same. The next thing I want to do is my interest expense. For one, I want to show what my interest expense rate is, which is the 17%. So I'm going to put that in the cell right up under interest expense. And we've also already solved for the interest expense for the first year, which was the $5,000. So I'm going ahead and plug that information in. And we did the same for the change or the principal, as we've already solved for it for the first year. Now my note payable, just below the word note payable, I want to show my present value, which was the $30,000. I want that to be there so I can see it. And I've already solved what the new balance for that note for 2011 will be, which is the $25,695. So I'll put that in there. This is what your table should look like so far. Now you might be wondering how to fill in the remainder of the cells. Just follow along with me. As I stated, the payment never changes, but your interest expense, it changes due to the change in your note payable. So to find the interest expense for year 2012, it's your new balance, not the present value that we started off with, but the new note payable balance times the 17%. For my change or my principal in the note payable, I take 2012 payment minus 2012 interest expense. To find the note payable, we take the new balance of the note payable minus 2012 change in note payable. Now you can do this process throughout the entire term of your note, or you can do a quicker version of it, which I can show you. Just follow along with me, and it goes by really fast here. What I want you to do in the year 2012, the 4,282, I want you to double click so that your formula shows. And what I want to do is lock that 17% cell down in place so that as I drag down, it doesn't move on me at all. It just locks this C18 in place. How I go about doing that is I put my cursor directly in front of the C, and it's blinking. Okay, and then I want to put a dollar sign in front of the C, in front of my alpha, and behind the alpha. So it should look just like this. And like I said, it's going to lock in my cell C18, that 17%, so it does not move, okay? Because I want my E19 to move as we go down the note payable as it changes, but I want the 17% to stay right here, fixed on that cell. Hit enter. Go back to the cell, click only once, and you take your cursor to the corner until it changes. Press down on your mouse and drag all the way down to the end of the note. Now, as you can see, the last two, there's no interest expense there. Don't worry, it will self-correct once we start filling in the remainder data, and you'll see that as we go along. So don't concern yourself with this. Let's move on to the next. And our change in our note payable or our principal, just click on it, one click, go to the corner until the cursor changes, hold it down, and drag. Do the same with our note payable balance. Go to the corner, hold down your mouse, drag it down. Now as you can see, once we filled in this information, it went ahead and self-correct itself for the interest expense. Now if I double click on any one of these, it's going to show you that this 17% cell was locked. Let me show you. See? It's still, but yet my E turned to 21. I'll show another cell so you can see that. Okay? Now you know your amortization table is correct when you see at the end of your note in year, for this one, year 2015, that it has a zero balance, meaning my automobile, my car is paid off free and clear. I no longer have a debt. I'm no longer in debt to the bank or anybody else. It's my vehicle. Okay, and that pretty much tell you that this amortization table is right. Now what I wanted you to do was to solve for the total cost of the vehicle. I want you to see if the total cost of the vehicle is actually this $30,000 or is it a different amount. To do that, there's two ways to do it. I'll show you both ways. The first way is that I can go on ahead and add up the number of payments. And I'll show you using the auto sum function again so you can see how that's done. Go up to auto sum, click on the drop down menu, go to more functions. Again, I can choose to go into the search and type in sum, or I can drag all the way down until I see the word sum, double click, sum meaning add. And as you can see, what Excel does is it selects the cells directly above the formula cell that you're working in. So it's selected all 5 of my years. So just hit enter. And that right there is your total cost at $46,526. Okay? Now another way you can do this is by adding up your interest expense and your change in note. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and I'll show you another way you can do it. You can type in sum, open parentheses, place your cursor at the top of the note where it starts in 2011 and drag all the way down to 2005, and then close parenthesis, enter. You want to add up your change in note. Another way you can do that is you take your cursor, since I've already added it up here and the formula's into place, drag it to the corner and go across. Okay? Now I also want you to take note that your change in your note payable will be the same as the present value when you initially took on your note. So they're both $30,000. Okay? Now how you find the total cost is that you add up the interest expense and your change in your note, which will give you the $46,526, the same as your payment. Okay? Now, if you recall, when you went to purchase that vehicle, they told you that the vehicle actually cost $30,000, but in fact it really cost you $46,526. And the difference between the $30,000 and the $46,000 is your interest expense. So if you take the $46,000 minus the $30,000, you're going to get your interest expense. And that is the difference. And if you want, you can compute CPI using this information for 5-year time frame. How you do that is you take the 16, divide that by your base, which was the present value of $30,000, and you get a CPI of 55%. And I hope this helps you with your homework assignment. If you have any questions, you know where my office is. Come by the office and I'll try to do my best to help you. Other than that, you know the homework assignment is due this Tuesday, and I'll see you in class. So, Assalamu alaikum.